Welcome back, everyone. First, some people ask me about the midterm, and I just want to share with you my plan right now is to have your midterm during the week 9, so March 11, our midterm exam. Before that, the previous lecture, my goal is March 9 to do a full review. So the goal is that you start preparing yourself for the exam, March 9 to have a session to maybe share with you some examples of questions, solve any question that you could have, mostly about the setup, the software that we're going to use to run your exam. The exam is going to be online, obviously, and well, all the process of the proctoring I am going to share with you later. Basically, maybe the most important thing for you to know is the exam is this day and during the lecture time. So your exam is going to open 4:30 and it's going to close 5:45 Arizona time. So that particular day, please be sure to be here in the lecture, not using Zoom, but available during the lecture time, Arizona time, to complete your exam. Good? So if anyone have a camera, please turn on the cameras. It's better to show your faces. Anyway, so that is regarding the midterm. Remember, your midterm is 25% of your grade is kind of significant. Check the lectures, review the slides, any question that you could have, you have 2 weeks, more or less, to ask, review, be prepared. Content of the exam, comprehensive, from the lecture 2 to the lecture the week before of the exam. So March 9 is a review, so we're going to complete lectures 1 week before, and everything could be in your exam. Most important topics, I want to check some of them with you today. Let's see. I would like to ask for your help with a small quiz. 2 ideas. Idea number 1, I want to be sure that the things that you use for your assignment are clear, that you can continue using those ideas with other projects, with different projects. Number 2, I want to introduce your next assignment. Moreover, I want to introduce a new topic, software design, and how we can apply design to plan our sprints. So in order to move to the design, I need to introduce your project. And if I am going to introduce your project, that is a very good point in which I can ask for your help to do things that you already know, and therefore evaluate that as a quiz. I am going to present you a project, and I am going to ask you to work with a team. You can create your teams, 5 people, the top 5 people, up to you. Who are the people? You're going to do your teams. And as a quiz, I am going to ask you for your product backlog. I am going to give you the details in the last slide, but just as an introduction, think about it. I am asking you for the product backlog for the project that I am going to introduce. Moreover, it's going to be your assignment later, not yet. Today, I am going to introduce the project because of the quiz. Later, I give you more details about why this project is going to be your next assignment. Good? The exam is comprehensive, yes, and is multiple choice, yes. I am going to talk about this later, more in detail, but your exam is comprehensive. Everything can be there. Most of the questions are going to be multiple choice. Most of them, 80% of the exam is going to be multiple choice. It's online. A couple of questions, 2 or 3, depending on the exam that you randomly is assigned to you. But some of the questions, 20% more or less, are going to be open questions. Open questions, the only thing that I can ask you is to write something. most of that is going to be source code. Source code related with some kind of project, design that we're going to cover in the next weeks, or stories for a particular description of a project, or something like that. So more or less, I do not want to give you the exact number, but more or less 20% of your exam is open question. The rest, 85, 75 is multiple choice. And you're going to have 1 hour, 15 minutes. So it's going to be enough time. Good. Okay. Talking about the quiz, I want to move quickly. So hopefully I finish before the hour. My goal is to give you time to organize with your team, to talk about the project, to ask questions, and to be able to work together, split the work, create a backlog, and submit. No, I am not going to share with you sample exams. What I am going to share with you, I'm going in the question in the chat. What I am going to share with you is some examples of questions, but no, I do not share exams with you. So I am going to explain to you like the software that we're going to use. I am sure that you have been using that software in other classes. I am going to show you slides with the questions and how they are, but I cannot share with you the full exam for previous sections. Sorry. Good. Okay, so your quiz. I am going to explain you the project. Any question that you could have, please feel free to ask. Your quiz as follows: 5 people in your team, and you have full day today, full day tomorrow to submit your product backlog. 1 day and a half. One person, one member of the team submit, and what I am going to do is to review with you whatever you submit in the following lectures. So today and tomorrow, to work with your team and tell me about the product backlog, the activities, and other questions that I am going to share with you at the end. Please understand the project, because we are going to transform that project in stories, tasks, and a draft for a design of the project. So your project, I would like to ask you to plan the developing of the following. I would like to have a Java application. The Java application should have a window used like this one. In the window, I would like to have a menu. In the menu, I am asking you to have 3 options. Those elements there are menu items. Sorry for the picture. 3 menu items. I would like to have an option: save, load, and new space. 3 options in a menu. Then in my window, I would like to have this working space, the gray areas. And in the working space, I would like to have a panel here. I am going to tell you what is going to be in that panel, but it's a panel covering the left part of the window. Then I would like to have another panel in the center. For the panel in the center, something that I need is to have multiple tabs. And here, I would like to mention one possible class that you can use in Java to create a panel that allows you to create tabs. Not sure if the picture is clear, but the idea is that I have a panel here that is basically this tab. But also, I have another panel here that corresponds to a second tab, and probably I have more in the background. In fact, every time that I click this menu item there, the new space, what happens is a new tab is created. It is clear. I have a window. The window has a panel in the left, and I have a big panel at the center. The panel at the center, at the beginning, have only one space, one tab. But I have an option in the menu, and when I click new, what happens is new tabs are added. So far, I do not have an option for delete a tab. So far, it's just adding new tabs. Menu, tabs, panels. And I am mentioning technical details. What are you going to do with that? Is something that I want to review with your quiz. Here, two things. Hopefully you are thinking about the story, the requirement. Hopefully you are thinking about the tasks. Moreover, the programming. The programming involved to do this, and that programming should correspond to a particular task, and that particular task should be connected with a particular story. Three different aspects, one specification. Okay, moving forward, this is just the beginning of my graphical user interface. Two, in the panel at the left, I would like to have these icons. Seven draws, 7 different types of rectangles. All the rectangles have the following elements. As you notice, they could have 0 or more inputs, and I represent the inputs with these rectangles here for the bar. They have 0 or more outputs, and I represent the output in the same way with these rectangles. And they have an ID, a name. The name, as you notice, is just a symbol. I am having this one, open parentheses, closing parentheses, etc. Inputs, outputs, and a name. All of them have those attributes. They look different. They are drawn on the screen in a different way, but they are these icons that I am going to use for something. So this is my step 2. I have a graphical user interface. I have this panel at the left. What I want is to have in that panel these icons, these rectangles, with 3 particular features: a name, inputs, outputs, represented with these squares. Next. Something that I would like to be able to do is drag and drop. Something that I would like to be able to do is to take one of these, maybe this one, or this one, or this one, and just select that one, click, and drag that element to the working area, to the current space in a particular tab. And I use drop, and what I have is the element there. And I can do that several times. I can use drag and drop one, another, and another. And basically I can fill my working area with those elements. One additional thing, when the element is here, something that I would like to be able to do is click in one of them, like this one. And when I click in one of them, I would like to be able to open a dialog box, that one, kind of a dialog box. And I would like to be able to store a value inside of that element. A value right now is irrelevant, which is the value. It could be a number, it could be a character or a string. It's just something. You can think about a string, and that helps you to generalize the idea. It's just whatever I put here is a value, and that value is going to be stored. It's going to be associated with that particular element. I can do the same with others that I drag and drop here or here. And all the nodes, it doesn't matter which is the particular type or the particular shape in the node. All of them can have a value, and the value is used as string. I am going to tell you what is going to happen with that value later, but for now is they have a value. That's it. Question in the chat, can I drag and drop the same element several times? Yes, that can be done. The elements in the left panels are going to be there always, and I can drag and drop 20 of this and 20 of this, and it works always. Think about this idea of having your bar like in the Asta software, and when you drag and drop the icon for a class diagram or the icon for an arrow, you can drag and drop as many arrows or as many rectangles as you want, nothing bad happens. So similar idea, drag and drop as many as you want, any of them. Good? Okay, each of them a value. Next. Well, the panel here is just the different icons that you have. You drag and drop them to the working area, and for everyone in the working area, you can store a value inside for every one of them. So I can take this one, drag there one time, and then I can select this one and drag another one here, another one with the line and 2 inputs. And then I click here. And for this one, I can store hello. And then I click here, and a dialog box is going to open. And in the value for this one, I can put use by or something. These are 2 different nodes, 2 different elements, each of them with its own value, but they both, the origin was drag and drop this one here. It's like, think about this, every time that you do the drag and drop, you are doing a copy of one of the elements in the left panel. So click, drag, that is one copy, click, drag, that is another copy, and you can do as many copies as you want, but each of the copies, each of the elements in the working area have its own values, its own position, X and Y, and also its own value, the one that I input with the dialog box. For now, do not worry about the different icons, how they are going to work. I am going to explain that in the following slides. I am going to go to that. These ones, the ones at the left are inputs, the others are outputs. I am going to show you an example, don't worry. So panel with icons, drag and drop, click, click, input a value. Now, what about all these things here and the things here? What is going to happen? Well, the next. I can click in one that is an open parenthesis. And as you can notice, the one with the open parenthesis do not have a rectangle here. You cannot connect anything there. The one with the open parenthesis have a rectangle here. It's an output. And for instance, I can drag a closing parenthesis. The one with the closing parenthesis do not have anything here, but have one here. As I mentioned before, the ones in the left part are inputs. The ones in the right are outputs. You can connect outputs with inputs. Think about an arrow, and I can click here. It's an output, it's an arrow, and I can connect that one with this one, an output, with an input, draw an arrow between the nodes. Is drag and drop again? It's the same functionality. Click, drag, and drop. But now between the nodes. In general, in all the nodes, I am asking you to have inputs, 1, 2, more, or nothing. And for all of them, I am asking you to have outputs, 1, none, 2, or more. The general rule is you can connect outputs with inputs. So I can connect this one with this one. But obviously, if I have another one, open parenthesis, and this one only have this one here, I cannot connect output with output. It should not be possible in the software to connect this one and draw a line to this one. That cannot be possible, but it is possible to connect this one, the output, with the input of another one. Right now I am showing the example with parentheses, open and close, just to make sense, but the rule applies to all the icons. Is any output can be connected with any input. Later I am going to explain the logic, but for now, the rule, outputs connect with inputs. I could connect this one here with, for instance, this one here. I could have this, and I could have this, and those two can be connected. It is fine, an output with an input. Something that could happen is I can do this one. Yeah, it can happen. I could have the parentheses and probably another like this, and probably I have another like this. The good news with this one is they have both input and output. So this one have two outputs. So one of the output can be connected with this input. Moreover, if I have another one and this have an input, This one can be connected with that also, or with something different. Doesn't matter. Output with input, connect. Good. For now, answer in the chat, the difference between the parentheses and the angular brackets, for now, they are just two categories of icons. I use trying to create this one output, no input, one input, no output, and this one, as you notice, have one input, two output, or two inputs, one output. I am just creating diversity. Later, it's going to be related with programming, but something coming. Two elements with a single output be connected with the same elements with two outputs. It's like if I have this one, and then these have two outputs and these have two inputs, can I do the connection like this? Yes, it's possible. Okay, this is clear that I have 0 inputs. This is clear that I have one input. This is clear that I have one also. This is clear that I have two. And I have two here also. The question in the chat probably is about this bar here. The equivalent to the bar is kind of an asterisk. You can connect as many inputs as you want. There is no limitation of the number of inputs. And similar with the outputs, this is one output, 0 output, two outputs, one output, two outputs. And for this one is as many outputs as you want. And this one's one. I use where that question is. The bars is as many inputs as you need, as many outputs as you need. There is no limit for the output. What I am doing, well, later this is going to have sense for some project that I am going to ask you to do, but right now, my concern is about the design of this software. My concern, and hopefully you notice, I am trying to point out some design principles that hopefully you are going to apply. For instance, all of these 7 probably are going to have a common parent, hopefully. Because if you have a common parent for these 7, everything related with drag and drop can be solved with drag and drop, whatever is the parent. And applying polymorphic behavior, you really don't care if you are doing the drag and drop of the parentheses or the brackets or the bars. Somehow that part could be transparent. Now, the big question is, who is going to do this task of implementing the polymorphic behavior? Because at the end, someone needs to do it. Which is going to be the story or the task associated with this activity that is a solution that is going to help a lot, but there is nothing here telling you apply polymorphic behavior. Nothing except your previous experience developing software, your technical skills. If you're familiar with the polymorphic behavior, if you're familiar with inheritance, if you're familiar with some similar project, not exactly with the graphic, but with these several items with common characteristics, you're thinking in polymorphic behavior. If not, probably you're thinking about stories or requirements that imply the use of drag and drop several times in 7 different stories or in 7 different tasks, instead of use 1. Only 1 people in the team need to be dealing with how to implement drag and drop. Once that is done one time, the others can take advantage of that just with the principle of polymorphic implementation. But it's something that I want to measure with your proposal. So that is the reason because I am going to ask you for a solution for this. Anyway, so far, hopefully the requirements are clear. Transform that specification that I am giving to you to a design and activities, different story. So additional examples here. 1, 2. Do we understand the connections there? Do we agree that these different icons follow the rules that I just explained to you? Outputs connected with inputs, one or more. You can draw this using the tool that I am asking you to draw. This is one example, the easy one. This is another, like with 1, 0, or 2 inputs and outputs. Very good thing. Someone noticed. Do we have a loop here? That is allowed. Yeah, that is correct. We are going to be allowing that. In particular, it is not relevant yet, but just to giving you some hint, the only one that is going to be allowed to have loops is this guy, the one with the @ symbol. The @ symbol is going to be my representation of loops are allowed. So that guy in particular is fine with the loops. That is going to be my representation of loops. So this one and this one, those two are going to be loops. This one. No problem. You can notice there is this loop and there is another loop inside of the loop. So these two ats are loop here and loop there. Again, inputs, outputs connected, that is allowed. You can consider that in your stories. That is a specification. Right now, do not have any implications. Right now, if you only use the first rule, the mandatory one, input, output connected with input, that is good enough for your quiz, for your assignment. Yes, the add is going to be the only one using loops, and that is something that I am going to highlight in the requirements for your assignment. For the quiz, is kind of bonus point. Connect the output with the input, only with the one that is this one. So you could connect this output with this input directly. Yes, only for the one that have the @ symbol. You could not do that between this one and this one, for instance. Only the one with the @ symbol. This is fine. This is wrong. For this one, answering the question and maybe to give you an idea of what is valid and what is not valid. Open parentheses represent a method, the beginning of a method. Closing parentheses represent the end of the method. So you can imagine open parentheses, closing parentheses. If you notice in my examples, there is always only one of each, the beginning at the end of a method. The angular brackets represent ifs. The closing of the angular bracket represents the end of the if else, the if part, the else part. That is the reason because there are two, and the closing is the closing of the if and the else. So if else, the angular. And this one represents loops, in particular the while loop. So that is the reason because I can connect output and input. Empty is an empty loop. That is more or less the representation or the equivalence of these icons. These lines, the minus, represent just an instruction. So that is the reason because it's one input, one output. It just the instruction that come up, down, and just connect with the next instruction. That is the meaning. Later, we're going to do something with this. That is correct. I am giving you this, answering your questions, and just to give you an idea of what you are doing here for the quiz. Really, what I am asking you is, doesn't matter what is the meaning of the connections, the previous one, this one, is what do we need to do? What are the tasks and the stories that you need to consider in order to create a system like this graphical user interface? It is not easy to create a graphical user interface. I am asking for tabs. I am asking for panels. I am asking for a menu. Moreover, I am asking for drag and drop items. I am moving these fancy icons, but if you think about drag and drop, it doesn't matter what is these guys. It could be a Sparky here, and I am asking you to drag and drop Sparky. That is a task associated with a particular requirement. Which one? And when you have these elements in the working area, I am asking for another requirement that is to connect the elements. And that connect the elements is connected with the drag and drop. It's again a drag and drop, but now it's not a drag and drop of rectangles, but it's a drag and drop with lines. Are you thinking right now about the data structures that you're going to use to solve this problem? Because I am pretty sure that you need to be concerned about the graphical user interface. I am pretty sure that you are thinking about, we need an activity, a task, a product backlog item regarding maybe knowledge acquisition about how to implement drag and drop. Probably. The graphical user interface have challenge. But guys, the main challenge, or at least the other 50% of the challenge that I am asking you to help me to solve, is about the data structure. How am I going to know that doing a click here is a valid place to do the drag and drop of a line? And click here is not a valid place for drag and drop. What I am going to do in order to be able to move this one or this one to the working area and to store that one in a particular tab. Because I asked you for several tabs, right? What if I click here and this one is going to be a different tab that maybe is going to be empty. In the tab 1, maybe I have this draw. And in the tab 2, maybe I have this one. And hopefully you agree with me that the challenge is not the graphic. The challenge is the data structure. The data structure handling all these elements and connections. That is the challenge. And how to connect that one with the graphical user interface is another challenge. And the drag and drop is a different one. You're going to be 5 people. Which are the elements that should have priority? which are the elements that are more complex? How many story points or hours, depending of your selection, are you going to put in the different stories that you are thinking to create? That is what I want to know. Okay, right now, this one, the value, I just want you to consider that. Why? Because right now, what I am asking you to do is, if you click here or here, here is to create a line. Here is to close a line. But if you make click, is to open a dialog box. And right now, I am asking you just for a value. Later, I am going to ask you for other things, maybe more values. But right now, the only reason because I put this requirement there is for you to consider that click in some part inside of the icon is going to trigger an action. So right now you have the click for the output line, the release of the input line, and the click in the icon to open the dialog box. That is the only reason because I mentioned this now. Later, we're going to do something with that value. Good. So example 1, example 2, example 3. This one used to give you the example with the bars, several outputs or several inputs. If you have a bar, you can connect whatever out or whatever in. Bars, the lines here, only one, more than one, closing. Clear. Any question regarding my specification? Which one? The this one? Those are just, you know, minimize, maximize, and close the window. There is no other thing there. I just try to show you a window with, you know, closing, minimize, maximize. In the value, the same. It's just like probably here should only be the X closing. That's it. It's just a window with the possibility of closing or something. That's it. Nothing special, really. Probably this one should be more like a dialog box with the input and, you know, okay, cancel. Good. So for your quiz, for your team, I want to really know the following. Before this, help me. Do you have an idea about how many classes do you need to implement the system that I described? It is important to maybe think about the classes, just because doing those classes are tasks that we're going to have to do. And in this point, I am using your knowledge, your technical knowledge, to do a planning of what is going to be the project. Have you an idea, use a guess of how many classes do I need to create and which classes from the libraries I am going to need to use? What about the actors? How many actors are involved in the description that I provide? And what are the functionalities that those actors are going to be involved? Good question. Something that I didn't mention yet, this is going to be a thing that is coming later. Later, I am going to ask you for another option in the menu, compile. I am not including that in the quiz. Later, you are going to have a compile, and basically compile is going to be reviewing that all the icons in a particular screen have all the outputs and inputs connected to something. That is going to be the compile, to review that all the connections are complete. So when I do compile, and if I have something in which one of the icons do not have an input or do not have an output, that compile is going to tell me you have an error, one connection is missing. But it's something that I didn't ask you for the quiz, something that we're going to do later. Yep. I didn't put a name to these two, to the bars. They represent threads. The beginning of the thread and the synchronization point. So you can think about the first one is throwing several threads. In this example, I have 5 threads. And in the synchronization point, all the threads should finish before the program continues. So looking for the name, one is the beginning of the threads, the parallelization point, the other, the synchronization point. That is what the picture represents. Both things are okay. You can use the names that I put. I know the names, or you can use talk about them with the symbols, the parentheses and so on. Probably if you are going to create classes, it will be a good idea to use the names, so you can have this icon, open parentheses, icon, closing parentheses, or what you prefer. Good. Going back to my question, guys, the design, how many classes and how those classes are going to be connected? Any idea? Do you think that could be a good idea to have one class per icon? Do you think that could be a good idea to have one class for each of the 7 icons that I showed you in the panel? This is the main screen. Which are going to be the attributes in those classes? Do you think that it will be a good idea to have a common parent for the 7 icons? Because right now I am reading comments in the chat and it's like, well, one class is enough. No, it's better to have several classes. Do you think that this is going to be kind of a family with inheritance? And do you think that the parent probably is going to have these commonalities of the inputs, the outputs, the name? But you think that there are differences there that could make the case for having an independent class of each of them? Someone mentioned the working area. The working area. Hopefully you are noticing that you need a class to represent this area. Not because of the graphics, but because you need a particular data structure to store the icons that you are adding. And hopefully what you are recommending me to do, having a class for the working area, is a class that is going to have a data structure, and that data structure is going to store every single icon that you drag and drop. The action of drag and drop is an action of adding an object from this category into a class that basically is a collection of those icons. Yeah. For the input and output, I agree with your description of using the square bracket. The only thing, probably you want to make this input and output not exactly an array. I understand the idea. It's a collection. Use exactly. It's a dynamic collection. You have one, two, several. You can inherit that part. Guys, I talk a lot about the graphical user interface. I give you a lot of specification about the graphical user interface. I am trying to make the conversation move toward the design. How many classes, the relationship between the classes. And the only reason is to understand the problem. But again, what I am asking you to do as the quiz, not just at the assignment, but for the quiz, is this. And to be clear, the first thing that I am asking you is for your product backlog items. And to be clear, they are not technical. Even though we're talking about technical things right now, I am asking you for a particular graphical user interface. I am moving the point toward the number of classes and how those classes are connected. That is to make you aware of the level of difficulty of the project. That is to make you aware of the steps that the programmer is going to be doing, the details. But I am asking you, step number one, for the stories, for the product backlog items. And hopefully by now we agree that technical details are not stories. So please be careful with your quiz. Do not submit technical things in your stories. You already know that. And do not tell me that it's because we talk about technical things during the presentation of the project. I am asking you to classify with all this information, what is the story, what is the task, and what is programming technical things. I fully agree with that description in the chat. If you have a parent class for all these guys, if you think about all these having one common parent, the solution of the drag and drop, the solution of what is the data type for the list in the working area, all that is going to move around the parent class. And you can do the storage of the data for one class, a linked list of elements of this parent class, drag and drop of this parent class element. Everything will move around the parent. One people can work that, a working area for the parent class. Another people can work about the drag and drop of the parent class. Another people can work the child of the parent class. All these different things, different icons that I'm presenting. And if you have that on mind, that you have three different classes and three different group of tasks to do, it's a good idea to connect that with your product backlog. Again, right now, you have a specification. This is a meeting with your customer. But the reason because all the team is involved in defining a product backlog, the items, is because you as a team have some technical knowledge that when you create the stories, you know that the independent part, the testing part, is going to happen in the technical level. You need that knowledge. It's not someone else without technical knowledge, the one that is going to tell you what to do. It's you. Now, the backlog. I really want to check your backlog. And I am pretty sure that for this backlog, because I am giving you 2 days to work, it's a pretty short period of time, there are going to be stories, for sure. I am asking for that. But probably you're going to have epics too. And my goal is that you remember that including an epic in a product backlog is okay. And that you remember that an epic is a story that needs to be refined. It's a story that you still need to think more about it. And I am pretty sure that you are going to have stories that you will need to think more about it. You are going to include them in your product backlog, right? Because it's the correct thing to do. I am asking you for a draft. You have a product backlog. I am asking you about this quick planning meeting in which for the items that you have that obviously are not epics, but are stories, something that you already know that, hey, this is done. This can be started in the next sprint. For those stories, I am asking you to do a draft of the possible task. And I want to be clear, you're going to have epics. You cannot give me tasks for epics. They are there just because you need to think more about them. But you have stories also, things that you understand, things that you know that need to be done. Those, you can draft some tasks, things that can start being doing. Moreover, for this one that are reading, I am really, really interested in know the level of complexity, the estimation of the difficulty, and also the priority that you can put. And remember, even the epics have priorities. So everything in your product backlog is going to have somehow a priority and an estimation. I want your help to know the priorities, the estimation, the task, the stories, the epics of the product that I ask you to do. That is correct. Remember, and when in the chat, it's not about they are low priority, but it's about they are in the bottom part of your product backlog. They are low because they need to be refined. So you cannot put them at the top because what is in the top is really ready to be started, ready to be done or submitted to the programmer team. So this one is going to be kind of down. Remember, also for the estimation, you have a different scale for the estimation of the complexity of a story in which you use numbers that represent points or hours, whatever you're using, and the estimation of the story. Remember, these stories are used so general letters. It's like, this looks like complex or not, or whatever, but it's not the same that the numbers that you are going to use for the stories. So it's very clear when you have an estimation for a story, something that you consider a story, or when you are estimating something that is not yet a story, something that you know need to be refined. So be careful with that. Good. So priorities, estimation, product backlog, which include your epics, your stories, and everything else. I am not expecting bugs, but probably knowledge acquisition is going to be there. I am sure that it's going to be there. For most of the teams, I am sure that you're going to put drag and drop up something that you need to do knowledge acquisition, which is okay. You do not need to be experts in drag and drop. It's a particular library that you need to review. That is fine. And one extra thing that I am asking you to share with me is also a draft. I do not know about your expertise or your previous experience with class diagrams, but it's something that we're going to review for metrics and for how design can be included in the Agile process. So use as a first step, and just to give me an idea of your previous experience, something that I want to ask you is, for the project that I described, can you draft a class diagram? Can you tell me the software design for the project that I described? I am not asking you yet to start programming. What I want to check is if you can imagine how the program is going to look like and draft a diagram in which you propose your classes and how those classes are going to be connected. I just start with the draft in the previous slide. We agreed that we need a parent, 7 classes for the icons, 1 working space, connected with composition or aggregation. But what about the graphical user interface? And what about other things? There are a lot of collision detection here, where the user is clicking, where that is going to be. There are a lot of algorithms that I need to detect that, where I am going to put that. Yeah, you have the save and the load. That is true. Okay, good question. My save and load, I am thinking about files, so no need for something like a database. I am not moving in that direction. Just think about, just like the ASTA software, you save your diagram. Right now, I am not concerned about the format of the file, but just think about, is a file the one that you're going to save, and that file is the one that you're going to load. And the point is, when you open the file, you should be able to recover something that you draw before. Up to you. Very good question in the chat. It's going to be the theme for the quiz, the same theme that you're going to have later for implementation. What I am going to do is give you the freedom to select your theme for the quiz, and whether or not you continue with the same theme for later the implementation of your assignment is going to be up to you. For this assignment and for this quiz, usually I will create the themes, but usually I will have the teams working in the classroom. Right now, I cannot do that. And I cannot be sure that a team that I create is going to be able to work together. And I think for this particular project, you're going to need to talk with your team. Hopefully that happens. So to avoid any circumstance that prevent you from talking with your team, you can work with whoever you want for the quiz and also for the assignment. And if you feel the need to change your team or to move team members, up to you. Good? Okay, any question, guys? Okay, good question. Do me a favor, guys, because I want to review this with you in a future lecture, hopefully the next one. Give me a document with your things. Put in a document, you can use whatever tool, Jira is great, but just give me your report, give me your quiz in a document, not a screenshot. Why? Because something that I want to do is copy paste what you give me in some of my slides. You can submit a PDF, a doc, whatever, but use a document, and you can include the class diagram also there. Remember, for your epics, the only estimation that you do is something like this. It's something that we review in a previous lecture. Is like you just provide this idea of, okay, this is going to be, or this is a large epic. It's an epic, but it's going to be kind of medium, or it's medium, or it's an extra large. This looks like a very, very large epic, though this one is going to create a lot of stories. It's really very open, this. You cannot really estimate like with numbers, like with the stories, but inside of the epics or to compare epics, if you have two epics, it's probably useful to say, well, this is medium and this is large. So there are two epics, but this is one bigger than the previous one. It's very subjective. Good. Yeah, I am going to try to complete the video and submit as soon as possible. Usually it's before midnight. Hopefully this one is going to be posted before the midnight today. Yeah. My advice, and you can put that in the task, give me as many information as you can, please. Put the information there. I would like to discuss the things that you draft with what you are going to do for the assignment. So if you can draft the task and you can draft the verification part for the stories, please go ahead and add them in the document. I am not asking for a particular format of the document. You can use story, and inside of the story, give me task, give me verification things, give me the information of the planning that you propose for the assignment. Before asking you to start with the assignment, I would like to review all these drafts and share with everyone kind of points that you can improve to move forward and do the real planning for implementing this as a project in 2 sprints, maybe, hopefully. For the quiz is due tomorrow midnight. So I am giving you basically today and tomorrow to work for the quiz to give me these points, only these points. For the assignment, don't worry. Again, I am not asking you yet to work in the assignment. So there is not assignment, not yet. Only the quiz for tomorrow midnight. Good? Any other question, guys? Okay, so you have 5 minutes. Hopefully everyone found a team. Remember, this quiz due date tomorrow, and I am going to open a link on Canvas for you to submit. Only one member of your team submit, 5 people per team. That is the top. Obviously, if you want to work with 4, 3, 2, or alone, up to you. Hopefully 5. And it could be a good idea if you are the same team that is planning to work in the assignment later. So you can start knowing each other. The goal of the assignment is to be due hopefully before your exam. So your assignment could be due before March 10. But I am not talking yet about the assignment. I want to review first your quiz. I need to confirm that you're ready to start working with that. And we can talk about the assignment later. Good? Okay, guys, I am going to stop here. I am going to try to post the video as soon as possible today, so you can review details later. And I am posting the slides right now. Good? See you next lecture.